Hi listener, this is From Ideology to Unity, a spiritual journey where we let go of ego and ideological doctrine in favor of meaning, purpose and unity as a whole. Today I'm doing another solocast reading, and well, first of all, to anyone who regularly watches, which at the moment isn't that many people, first of all, I'm grateful that you're following me. That's great. If you could leave a comment, give me feedback so I know if there's anything I could change to make what I do better, that'd be great. Yeah, so I'm working on a polished video, a more quality video, as opposed to, not that what I do isn't quality, but it's entirely intuitive in the sense that it's not really prepared, it's just done. Right. And what I'm working on is a polished video that will have animations and stuff like that. And I'm basically using a method called the Feynman method to get a clear understanding of what I'm talking about, so I can unscripted from my head just say it and get it right. But do it in an intuitive way as well. So I want it polished, but intuitive. To do that, I actually need to prepare for like a week or something. I'm not sure exactly. So, but I can't just like, I don't think, I want to do some more content though. Even though I was going at such a fast rate that I kind of felt like people couldn't even keep up with me. Like my own viewers or listeners, right? So I figured it was okay if I slowed down a bit while I changed gears. You know, I just felt like it would be a little bit, there would be a transition phase, I guess. Anyway, I'm doing well with that. It may not look like I'm doing anything, but I've been using the Feynman method. I've been actually making progress with that. So don't worry, I haven't like lost my motivation or anything, quite the opposite. I'm just changing the way I'm doing things. Honestly, I actually looked at horoscopes and stuff. Like I've got an intuitive idea of a new tack to take in this new year. And that's why I'm doing things differently. It's not, I'm fine, don't worry. Not, but if you were, I mean, you can. Okay, all right. So what am I reading? So this is something I've read before, the Living the Law of One, 101, The Choice by Carla Rueckhart. But this section I haven't read yet. This is chapter 3, The Energy Body, Mind and Consciousness. So I'll be honest with you, I'm slightly using the Feynman method doing this. It's also because I think it would be interesting, and it will lead me on to talking about the chakras, which is also something I want to research better so I can talk about them better. But also, I think it'll be pretty interesting to people, and I think people can know more about, understand it in more depth. Now, if you want to understand the chakras, you've got to understand the energy body, because fundamentally, the chakras are the energy body, or at least part. The different nodes or different points in the energy body. At least this is my current idea of it. The current idea is that there's the, I might be wrong, but there's the spirit body that's a soul, that or maybe the soul is, or part of the spirit body. Anyway, there's the spirit body, there's the energy body, which is like your chakras and stuff. And then there's your physical body. There's also your pain body, which is traumas and stuff, and it's in some way connected to your energy body. I don't know the ins and outs of that, but without further ado, I'm going to get on with it. And it starts with something that Quo or Euro, Cure possibly Euro. I assume Quo is the way to pronounce it. Something he said in or they said in or April 14th, 1996. And to clarify, in case you don't know, Quo is a social memory complex of 3 beings, one of which being Ra from the original, from the Ra material, one of which being who's 6th density, one of which being Haton, which is 5th density, and one of which being, wait, Haton, Laqui, something like that. So I imagine they've got different, they do different things better, and there's a reason why it's done that way. I don't know why. But anyway, there are beings that are more than one. That's a social memory complex, right? And they're actually apparently easier to, they've been described, I think Brian Scott described them as a bit easier to read anyway, because it's just like, easier for us to, anyway, I think you'll understand if you hear it. Consciousness, in truth, the consciousness of love. Oh, pardon me. Consciousness is, in truth, the consciousness of love. For love and the distortions of love are all that is, all that there is. Each person has a native vibration that is completely congruent with the logos that created and formed all the millions of infinite universes. And each, through the process of taking an incarnation, has signed up for a difficult yet rewarding service. That consciousness then, that some have called Christ consciousness or cosmic consciousness, dwells within that vessel of skin and bones, muscles and thoughts. Each rattles around in this somewhat alien configuration, a spirit trapped or just visiting. Most entities spend some time feeling very trapped, and yet this is an opportunity for which you wished very much. This was a trip for which you planned, setting up for yourself relationships that would help to focus your own heart and mind upon those lessons of love you yourself deemed to be the most telling and critical for you at this point. And so that basic vibration of each is love itself, distorted, contracted, controlled, shall we say, by the various ways in which, by free will, the entity has chosen to limit or shape consciousness. You are a player of the game of life, according to the Confederation philosophy. I will go on a tangent here, and I'll say that there's mention of the Confederation of Planets, and there's mention of the Federation of Light, and there might be confusion about how they fit in together, right? My impression is that there is, across the galaxy and beyond, there's a confederation, which is relatively decentralized compared to a federation generally, according to the definition. So of planets, some of which are honorary members, like Earth is before the awakening, but Earth is going to become a fully fledged member in time after the awakening anyway. Maybe it already is. I think it technically, that's something called the Sphere Alliance, according to disclosure.wiki. But anyway, the Confederation is literally that. It's a confederation, and it's largely service to others, but not entirely, I think. It's quite decentralized. And the Federation of Light is more for the active role of helping planets with ascension, especially difficult ascensions, I think. Although there might be better sources to look up to find that information about that, but that's just my impression. Anyway, so the Federation of Light is associated with the Confederation. And after all, civilizations in the Confederation of Planets are involved in the Federation of Light. Some of them are. For example, the Palladians, for example, are involved in that. And Ashtar Command is a very notable example of that as well. interestingly, both of them look human, or rather we look like them a bit. And it must be serious because even the Arcturians are involved. And I thought they were more, previously I thought they were more less getting involved in these sort of operations, but Earth is a serious case, I guess. Anyway, these next few chapters are about how to play the game well. They deal with how your mind, body, and spirit work. Getting a grip on this material concerning the energy body will help you be a spiritual athlete as you come to the game board each day. Right. Successful play on the game board does not go swift, but to the right-hearted. The player runs a race with himself each day, seeking like the medieval knight for the grail or spirit of truth, beauty and love which tells a story of the world aright and teaches our hearts to be wise and true. I have a feeling Jung would have interesting things to say about this. It involves individuation and the self, what comes to mind here. And it does in terms of the law of one as well. So I imagine individuation, that is integrating the shadow, has something to do with awakening. And in fact, a lot of light workers are aware of Jung and deliberately refer to the shadow and are influenced by Jung, clearly. I certainly am. And those light workers who are aware of the importance of doing inner work, otherwise known as shadow work, which is recognizing the darkness within us and lovingly embracing it to help clear it out and healing our inner wounds. Of course, like has been rightfully pointed out, there are beings that have clearly chosen a path of service to self and aren't willing to change their minds, or at least are not likely to in the time being anyway. So, but if this is used as a reason not to engage in shadow work because, oh, shadow bad, I mean, maybe I'm misrepresenting it, but like, I suppose they just don't really necessarily understand or not willing to delve into their own inner darkness, which is unfortunate, but they feel it gets to different stages, you know, so. Anyway, in this chapter, we discuss the energy body in general. In following chapters, we will look at it in more detail, one chakra or energy center at a time. Consciousness is the deepest part of our minds, and access to this common consciousness is necessary in order to play the game of life well. Without access to this infinite consciousness, we are coming to our game board with faulty and incomplete information. We, as maybe we are information. We as people, with our surface personalities awake and in control, always limit color and shape consciousness by those attitudes and thoughts which constitute our prejudices and biases. Those are our distortions. We unconsciously see the world through the lenses of our basic assumptions and overall points of view. All right. I feel like talking about some distortions I've had in the last year that I realized the other day. So this is a touchy subject, and obviously this is something to be careful with, given that, all right, so I can't avoid some degree of bias and contentiousness by talking about this. So what there is, you might be aware of, there were riots and there was a whole thing where the black guy got killed or died, what have you, and there were lots of riots. Antifa got involved, and there was a perception on the right that this was orchestrated or at least out of control. And there was a perception, and there's some people on the left involved who were saying they thought that that there were people in the crowds who were setting up bricks in the head of in advance who weren't really part of their movement, who were just kind of make stirring things up and making them look bad. At the time, I ignored that. I saw it as the left being the problem, despite how I thought it was the cabal, but I viewed all of Black Lives Matter as being wielded by the cabal, not some of them. And when I saw what happened in Washington with the Trump supporters, and there were some who went in, and there were people who were saying that some of those people who went in, or maybe even all of them, were certainly certain key people, like the guy with the bullhorns, were actually Antifa, right? Or at least he'd been seen in an Antifa protest, the same tattoos and everything. And I started to be like, well, okay, so he's an infiltrator for an Antifa. But then I realized, and I saw that the establishment was talking about, established media and people who have fallen for that were talking about how, okay, this was Trump movement being entirely toxic, and they all did this because they were, and just saying that basically all of them were just, all the Trump supporters was just like the same in regard to the storming of the Capitol building and stuff. And I realized, not at first, but I realized that I was experiencing from the other side of the coin, what it was like for Black Lives Matter supporters who noticed something weird going on. The ones who were on that protest because they felt that this black person was killed in this really horrible racist way, and suddenly these people are saying, hey, let's riot, let's go destroy stuff. And they see bricks being laid around, like bricks laid around in advance. And why is this? And certain things didn't add up. And it's like, they felt like they were being framed in some sense, or incited toward negativity, artificially in some sense. And I remembered that. I remember that people mentioned that. And I was like, okay. So it's not like, my previous opinion had been that the thing in the summer had been entirely left toxicity, I suppose you could say, or radical left toxicity by people who were manipulated by the cabal, but still left toxicity. But I saw the Trump thing as entirely, all the people who did bad stuff were not Trump supporters. And then I realized, wait a sec, this isn't, I'm about from ideology to unity, not ideology to ideology. You know, the important thing is not actually, is recognizing like things in a more impartial way. So to me, in a more impartial way of looking at it is that both movements were manipulated as a sort of divide and conquer method. Now, another consistent attitude, which might be the more mainstream centrist attitude, maybe, and another way of looking at it would be, okay, so neither is infiltrated, but all the conspiracy theories are nonsense. But I don't believe that. There's too many fishy things. So I know it's a bit of a tangent, but it's interesting how even light workers, even some of the more enlightened ones, and I'm not one of those, by the way. I'm not one of the more enlightened ones, but I don't think I've even fully opened my heart, or even, yeah, I'm still working on opening my heart, yeah, and I think I opened my third eye a bit early and it caused me issues. So yeah, don't listen to those binaural beats for the third eye before you've opened your heart. And you'll know if you've done that, because if you feel unconditional love for everyone all the time, you're ready to open your third eye. And most people aren't at that point yet. So, yeah. Because incidentally, you'll have this same setup in terms of your, if you do that, if you open or activate your third eye early, that's kind of basically skipping out your heart until you activate your heart, that is, heart chakra. And that would be basically the same thing that serves the self people do. Sort of. Digressing again. So enjoy. Yeah. You know, it's easy. It's so easy for our egos to get involved, even slightly, and distort our perspective, right? And we need to be vigilant, and there's always more distortion to find within you. Or rather, we can always be less distorted. I don't think we should be naive into thinking, okay, we see how it all is, we're all pure. Like, no, that we could always check more and do more inner work. Because ultimately our hero's journey, it may repeat again and again and again in different ways, but ultimately it's within, in a sense. And we can't just be naive and be like, about our perspective. We're always missing something. There's always a distortion. And our egos are meant to be a tool, but they can get a bit uppity. And we have subconsciouses, so it can influence our thinking without us realizing. So yeah, that's an example from my life anyway, because the truth is all ideologies are, or movements are to some extent manipulated, because a political movement that isn't manipulated and co-opted is dangerous to the establishment. So the establishment always tries to co-opt them all and use them all for its purposes. And the mainstream media does that too. So, yeah. Consciousness is the deepest part of all of our minds, and access to this common consciousness is necessary in order to play the game of life well. Without access to this infinite consciousness, we are coming to the game board with faulty and incomplete information. We as people with our surface personalities awake and in control always limit, color, and shape consciousness by those attitudes and thoughts which constitute our prejudices and biases. Those are our distortions. We unconsciously see the world through the lenses of our basic assumptions and overall points of view. And as someone else I've interviewed, as I discussed with someone else I interviewed, we don't want to ring fence our beliefs too much. And it's like, this is the truth, right? And then, especially if you start defending your truth against other people's truth who are also doing the same thing, you end up in this downward spiral of conflict, and it gets more distorted and biased, and you don't want to do that. Whereas if your idea of truth is more fluid, there's less for you to be attached to. So, yeah. Getting bad information is the natural condition of anyone who is not working with an open heart. So in my opinion, the ultimate, what we need to do is work on clearing out the blockages and the wounds and so forth within us, so that we can get closer and closer to an open heart. And even when we do have an open heart, we can keep doing that to make sure we're got a more open heart and more consistently open heart. Of course, we as players would prefer not to get bad information. We therefore wish to open our hearts and keep them open, so the consciousness which dwells therein can inform us and broaden our points of view. As I discuss consciousness and mind, remember that the object in understanding this material is to learn how to better to color, limit, and shape our underlying biases, and better inform our points of view. Dipping up into the ocean of consciousness for spiritual guidance or creativeness, however you like to think of this resource of the deepest mind, helps us to make the more informed and skillful choices through the insight, clarity, and simplicity that short swim provides. Well, I mean, got nothing pretty solid, I guess. The Confederation entities use the word distortion a lot. Everything is a distortion of the law of one to the Ra group. The Logos, light, and all created suns, or sub-logoi, are already distortions of the infinite oneness of the unmanifest creator. Each of us is a further focus of the Logos, a sub-logos by Ra's terminology, and correspondingly more biased or colored. And I would say the further you get up in awareness frequency, I guess the less colored it is, but it's infinite with all these infinite octaves going up and down. So the journey never ends, really. And that's fine. It is expected and applauded that we will distort the infinite oneness. Indeed, we cannot do otherwise, as all manifested things are illusionary, and therefore a distortion of the infinite invisible one. We need to get a handle, therefore, on the dual nature of our apparently unified brain functions. This is something I've alluded to, and others have. And I forgot, actually, that that was mentioned, the brain function between, you know, the left and right brains and all that. And then, okay, well, let's see what else to say. We need to understand how to move between and play the two quite different functions in the mind so that they can work together. Once we get the picture and start to see how to be a competent player, the game gets better, since we can compete with ourselves each day for having the most excellent day at the game board yet. Yeah, what they said there. I've never found any system of psychology to be nearly as helpful to me as the Confederation material on the energy body, in terms of helping me find peace within myself and a feeling of quiet confidence in play on the game board. It may be because the Confederation entities include the sacred in their explanation of how we work. I would say that Jung's at least indirect reference to the sacred, even if he doesn't even if his work doesn't say, like, advocate it being real, you know, per se, I would say is a positive. If you're not sure what they mean by the game board, well, it's like, imagine 5D chess, right? But your moves, the way to succeed at 5D chess, that is, if you're service to others, is by, well, being service to others, right? Your moves aren't for your advantage. They aren't for your ego. They are for your progress in service to others. That's a brief way to put it. Anyway. I've never found any system of religion to be nearly as easily acquired by a person with a logical mind as the Confederation material. This could be because religion does not deal with consciousness as a thing in itself, but rather with personifications of the Godhead, which you could call icons. And seems my phone vibrated, which wouldn't be good if I got called, would it? Anyway, I hope you guys and gals have a nice Christmas and New Year. And it has to get worse before it gets better, right? Because catalyst is what helps people wake up, and a lot of people, I get a sense that, I mean, some disparagingly call them normies, but, or whatever, right? Sheep even, you know, it's a bit, there's a judgment there that perhaps can be avoided. So the issue is that, in my opinion, for them to question whether the establishment is in their best interest would be unfathomable because it's a terrifying prospect. If you've believed your whole life that the establishment is out there working for you, right? And all these services, they're for you, and you can trust them, and there isn't this danger of tyranny. Or at least if there is, it's the other political party, right? The idea that there's something deeper at work that's really, like conspiracy theories deal with, is, well, that would be terrifying to deal with, right? To grapple with. And they would much rather, it's much easier to just view the people talking about conspiracy theories as bad people or crazy, and to act in a way that the establishment and the media that speaks for it says is righteous or right, or is right, okay? And that requires whatever is told of you that is true and that you need to do and that is right, doing that. And because their egos get attached to that, to some extent, some might even start virtue signaling and having a go at others who don't do that, or not as much. And if it started shifting to become more and more extreme, they would have to keep going with that, because the alternative is the terrifying prospect of the establishment is against us in some sense, or can't be trusted, or doesn't out for our best interests, and grappling with that terrifying possibility. It's basically like a sort of, I suppose it's a bit like Stockholm syndrome in a way, isn't it? So it would have to get bad enough that a consciousness shift happens, and they're like, okay, no, this is too much, just something's off here. Like, something would have to change, wake them up, a wake-up call, basically. It'd have to get bad enough for that to happen. And for some people, we haven't got to that point yet, especially given that there's this idea that the reason why we're in this mess is because people haven't followed the rules. So maybe a stage before they wake up is anger at those who haven't followed the rules, or they perceive haven't followed the rules, or maybe they just haven't followed it to the extent that they have. It's like, suppose there's slavery on the farm, right? On a plantation, and they get treated badly by the owners, but there's some of them who they follow the rules. But suppose all of the slaves get treated worse if some of them are rebellious. The well-behaved ones might resent even having a go at the well-behaved in inverted commas, at the quote, badly behaved ones for not following the rules, because they get worse treatment. And they're like, it's your fault. You're the reason that we're going through this pain and hardship, right? Because they're invested in the incentive structure and the rewards that they've been getting, and the beliefs that they've been getting as slaves, that they actually believe in the whole system they're part of. And to actually, for them to be like, okay, I can't do this anymore, I can't keep obeying, it would have to be, well, wake-up call, right? Now I think about it, a show that might evoke this in some way is actually Gladiators. Set in ancient Rome. There's a main character. He was the whole time was like, I'm rebelling, I want to get out the whole time, right? This other guy, who was like the favorite of the gladiator trainers, was like, nah, I don't like you. I've been in this whole being gladiator thing for a long time, and I don't want to rebel. I follow the rules. I do what they say, and I like what I do. I like who I am. and he didn't like the main character, right? But eventually it got so bad that he had enough loss, enough pain that he was like, I can't follow this anymore. But it takes a lot of catalysts for people to change. People don't do it. It doesn't happen overnight. And so I guess while in a sense we've already won, a victory is inevitable. It takes time for it all to play out. And some people need to for people to cotton on to how things are changing, it takes time, even though time is ceasing to be so real. I know that kind of sounds like a contradiction, but whatever. It felt right to talk about that at the time, so at the moment, so I'm okay with going on a big tangent. It's my style, we'll take it or leave it, I guess. So, right. That wasn't COVID, I promise. Okay, right. A virtue of this material is that it's neutral in tone. It offers resources rather than dogma. Earlier in this report, as we looked at the rules affecting play on the game board, we found that the game is about making ethical choices according to our chosen polarity. You and I have chosen to polarize in service to others. We both are working on polarizing towards making compassionate choices, offering loving words, and creating thoughtful and generous ways of dealing with our world and the people we know. So we often, this isn't reading the book, I'm going on a tangent. Increasingly these days, we can find ourselves feeling like reacting. This negative emotion bubbling up from within, triggered by something outside of us. It might be a relative, it might be something political, it might just be a bad memory, you know? And this happens, and what I've been learning recently, the progress I've been making, I guess, is that I guess I've accepted the feelings I've been having rather than I've been looking at them more observing them rather than absorbed in them. And recognizing that, you know, the catalyst is actually like a test for you to grow, right? It's a good thing that it's there, right? I mean, without being tested like this, we wouldn't grow so much. And I guess we can focus on exploring and accepting and sort of being kind to ourselves as with our emotions. We don't want to be like, no, I shouldn't be thinking these thoughts or having these feelings. And we'd be like, no, it's great. It's fine that I'm having this. And you honor that. And you can sort of send love towards that part of you that's hurting and clear out the trauma and the negativity within. And that you feel lighter afterwards and more buoyant. Like you feel, from experience, you feel like if your mind is water, the water feels calmer, right? Instead of like loads of, have you ever been to a pool where they have the waves, they create the waves, like, well, have you been to the sea, these waves, stormy, choppy, you know, choppy and all that. Whereas there's calm water. I mean, it's a pretty easy thing to visualize, I think. And the more you practice, I suppose, is it mindfulness and this detachment? And the more you practice, I guess, the easier it gets to deal with things, and you'll start to notice that things that previously you would have reacted at, you just don't react as much, and you don't feel that as much pain inside or of certain negative emotions. It depends on who you are, what you've been through, what those feelings are. But I suppose that's how we, well, it's part of the awakening process anyway, but that's where I'm at. Hopefully it helps someone. Okay. Mind, consciousness, and perception. And this quote will be from Quo as well. What affects the energy body most is the thoughts that one has. Therefore, if one is improving one's diet and is happy about it, the information of the improved diet moves into the chakra body as good news. If, on the other hand, an entity is plodding through a dietary regimen that is prescribed for an illness, but that entity is unhappy and feels constricted by this regimen, then the information that is given to the chakra body will be quite different. It will seem like a negative thing to the chakra body rather than a positive thing. Okay, the quote's not done, but there's something I want to talk about. So there's this quite widely, there's this idea in the awakening community of veganism or vegetarianism being the more enlightened choice. And it's quite an understandable perspective. I mean, because if you think about it, I mean, when we're eating meat, we're largely eating it for our own pleasure. Animals that have, technically speaking, if you look at the process and consider if that was done to humans, what it would be, slavery and then eating them, right? Killing them and eating them for a pleasure. Now, I'm not saying that that's like inherently immoral or there's bad people for doing that or anything like that. In fact, I still actually eat meat. I don't do it as often as I did, but I still do. Now, the question is, if I were to go all out, in light of what we just read, if about it feeling restrictive, if the entity is plodding through dietary regimen that is prescribed for an illness. For example, if you're going to that dietary regimen, literally, I don't think it's literal, but it can be taken literally. If you're supposed to just go all out of veganism, right? Because, oh, that's just a more ethical thing, which it might be, right? But suppose you do that, you might actually negatively impact your awakening and actually, well, be constrictive and lower the frequency if you're not ready for that. Whereas, especially if you feel pressure to do it, but whereas if you focus more on raising the frequency, and then naturally your desire to eat changes, and then you eat differently based on that change of frequency, that's a natural process at a rate that's good, that right for you at this point where it's most helpful for you. I mean, in some cases, apparently the Buddha was able to go without eating or barely eating at all at one point, right? But you don't get there like suddenly. And just because technically it's like more ethical to do that. I mean, plants suffer to some extent by us eating them. It's been proven scientifically that they can even detect a scream, right? But the thing is, like, so you could make the argument, well, just be like Buddha. Don't eat anything. Just eat a tiny bit and get most of it from like the sun or something, like, and process it with your. But obviously, that's reductio ad absurdum. That's a ridiculous thing to advocate. But my point is, the principle is similar, and that if you're not ready to do it, it's just not helpful, right? And however much someone who cares about animals and is horrified by what they go through, especially factory farming, however much they might feel that it's of utmost importance that as many people as possible become vegan as quickly as possible, which I absolutely understand. And it's noble that they have that feeling that they want that change, a reduction of suffering as much as quick as possible. Like, it's admirable that they really want a better world. Probably after the awakening is complete, everyone will be vegan or something. That will be fine and great. Everyone will be ready for it, and there won't be any hardship in that. But it's one step at a time towards being more awakened in every single respect, right? And I can apply that concept broader. I mean, veganism is an example, the principle. There are many things we can be patient with ourselves and kind to ourselves about each step we take at a time, right? It's okay if we slip up. It's okay if sometimes we hurt people, because we don't make improvements all at once. We just don't. Wherever you are at now, an improvement is what matters, not that if you say, okay, this place is this, you're at this place, it's unacceptable, you need to be at this place, so just be where it's acceptable to be. Like, that's a perspective of limitation, of separation, of kind of like cruelty to yourself. It's just not like, just be who you need to be. And if you're not, then screw that. You know, it's kind of like, if you're not accepting yourself, how can you love yourself if you're not accepting yourself? How can you? And if you're not loving yourself, that means you don't have a closed heart. And opening your heart is what awakening is all about, right? I mean, it's interesting also that there are some people who seem to feel like they still haven't entirely let go of judgment, even though they're trying to awaken, right? So they're awakening and they're like judging other people as unworthy. It's almost like they're judging certain people as unworthy of awakening or incapable of awakening. Like, I think you're a bad person, so I think that any light that you show or any signs that you want to be a light worker you're showing are fake. You can't be genuine because you don't meet my standards for being a light worker, right? That sort of attitude, right? It's understandable, but it's ultimately a form of spiritual bypassing. It's a form of denying their own inner darkness, which they're projecting onto others, and thus denying the darkness of others. It's kind of like they're denying the light of others, but also in that process, they're actually denying their own inner darkness that they're seeing in others. But they don't realize that because they're projecting. I mean, it's a very understandable thing, and even light workers can do it. Like, I've done it, even fairly recently to some extent. Like, I get it. It's not something I'm going to judge you for, and if I do, sorry. I'll try to do better, I guess. So, yeah. Yeah, that's what we're right to talk about. So I'll finish the quote. I've got a feeling, I'm not sure how long it will take me to get through this chapter, to be honest, at this rate, you know. For the chakra body is not listening to the doctor, nor is it listening to the ideas that contain the word should. It is only listening to the feelings and the thought forms involved in the translation of physical effects into feelings and the sensations of the body. A happy heart is more helpful to the chakra system than a good diet. A peaceful mind is more helpful to the chakra system than exercise. For example, if someone was making sure they're really super healthy, right? They're exercising loads, constantly going to gym every day. You've got to keep it up in every single respect. They have all the protein shakes and everything, right? But they obsess about it to a point they're stressed and like outcome focused too much and comparing themselves to others and their ego's involved. Obviously, probably better even for their physical health not to bother with that, like, and to actually chill about it all. Because I just imagine if like the Buddha had been pumping iron and having protein shakes and like there's no way that's the sort of behavior that the Buddha would have had or Jesus, despite there being certain art of like Christ like arm wrestling the Satan or something like okay, yeah, I'm going to carry on now. So the quote's over. I'm going to just back to Carla Rueckhart until I make another diversion. Making choices skillfully is not simply an intellectual matter, though I wish it were sometimes. Making good choices is not often is often not simple at all. The facts of the situation are not the whole of the situation. Our biases and presuppositions color the way we see things. Our attitudes substantially and critically affect our perceptions. The quote offers a good example in the quote above. I think that's a joke. It's Q apostrophe U-O-T-E. I thought that was a typo when I read it. I'm pretty sure that's a joke. Okay, thanks, Carla. We generally swim. Well, yeah, I agree with what's said anyway, yeah. We generally swim in a sea of sensation, multitasking as we go. Moments of choice often take us by surprise. This is because we are generally only partly attending to the present moment. We seldom meet this present moment of now with our full and undivided attention. Instead, we are often thinking of what is next on our to-do list. And being more present, as Eckhart Tolle tells us, is, well, very important. And there, on that note, there's a footnote, and it says, I honor Eckhart Tolle, whose books, The Power of Now and New Earth, work with this idea of living in the now extensively and well. Was this written? I guess The Power of Now was written by the time, this was what, 2009? Update 2015. Okay, yeah, it was around by then. We spend time smiling at golden memories, and often we spend more time walking down the sad bits of memory lane, wasting our energy on regrets and second thoughts that distract us from play on the game board. Oh man, yeah. I can relate to that so much. And honestly, I'm sure you can too. Many of us can. Most of us can, to be honest. But it's not all bad. Dwelling on those negative thoughts is all right, in my opinion, if you're doing inner work. If you're accepting those feelings and sort of, if rather than being bitter about it, you're just accepting it, loving it. As I said earlier in this episode, to basically, yeah, shadow work, doing the inner work, you know about that. If you're doing that, then good. But obviously, we can be like, oh, it's so terrible that happened. Oh my God, being drama queens about it, or whatever, you know. We can do that. And it's human, I suppose. But we all want to be doing that less, probably. This chapter is about learning how our minds, bodies, and spirits all work together. The model we are taught in terms of how to think of ourselves is basically as a body with a mind and something vaguely thought to be a soul. Our culture and our teachers assume each of us has only one mind. We are taught that some people have big brains and some people have smaller ones. We are taught that some people are artistic and therefore right-brained, and others are logical and reasonable and therefore left-brained. There is no assumption that there is a faculty of mind beyond the feelings and perceptions that are generated in the brain. For players of the game of life, however, this assumption is faulty. To the Confederation, what we think of as our minds is only their definition, part of their definition of mind. In this report, I have separated out the deepest portion of the mind in their system for ease in talking about it and getting used to it, using it. The deepest portion of the mind in the Confederation philosophy is consciousness. Consciousness is in the sea of being, which is of the one infinite creator. It is made of unconditional love. In our normal state of mind, we may not have access to consciousness. Consciousness dwells within each mind in a non-local, non-physical locus intersecting our energy body. Non-local. And that is actually, it means non-local in terms of the quantum physics, actually. Although it might be self-explanatory, but essentially like, well, you and someone on the other side of the world are like, in a sense of, you're adjacent in a sense that is beyond 3 dimensions. And it's also talking about in a non-physical sense. So, well, energy, prana, chakra, manner. You know, there's various words that are thrown around for it. And opening your heart, accessing heart chakra, the heart chakra is a way, is definitely a big step towards being truly conscious. And what we think of as conscious, as compared to animals, is, well, I suppose it's relative, but we're approaching a step up or transitioning through a step up that's as much different, perhaps, as the difference between where we are and animals. I mean, even Nietzsche talked about the Superman or the Ubermensch as being as much different from, as we are to monkeys, as what we will be to where we are now. What is this energy body? The Confederation material suggests that the energy body is what connects our physical bodies to our eternal spirits or souls. The energy body interpenetrates our physical body and is inseparable from it during our lifetimes. First of all, does that remind you of Star Wars at all and the Force? I feel like whether deliberately or through synchronicity or somehow, you know, there's definitely a similarity there between how the Force is described and this. So okay, yeah, we've got our physical bodies. From what I've heard, so above, we've got these three bodies. The fifth density beings don't have physical bodies, but they have energy bodies and they have spirit bodies. That's my impression. And from what I've heard is that sixth density beings don't have energy bodies. They just have spirit bodies, they're thought forms. I'm not sure exactly how that works, but, and I might be wrong about that, but this to me clarifies just, in a sense, the energy body connects the two together, but also the spirit body and the physical body, but also seems to give us abilities. But I'd go with their clarifications here over what I say, probably. Visualize your body standing erect. See the vertebrae of your spine. Place over that connected series of bones another body, a kind of energy pipeline. That pipeline is your energy body. It consists in the system offered by the Confederation of 7 connected chakras or energy centers. This slightly egg-shaped energy tube with chakras runs up the spine from its base to its tip. The energy body holds the blueprint of our perfect body, our body at birth, the body that came into our incarnation from the factory, so to speak. It is the train on which we were riding when we arrived, and so it is also the train we will ride when we depart. It is not the physical as we understand physicality, but is connected to our physical bodies. Fringe scientists from Russia to the United States have alleged, I will not say proved, that this energy body weighs about 20 grams or 3/4 of an ounce. So, yeah, I guess we do not have to worry about losing the connection between our physical bodies and energy bodies and our energy bodies. The two are firmly attached via a kind of umbilical cord, which some have called the silver cord. This energy body has a profound effect on upon our experience of life. And the reverse is also true. Our feelings and thoughts have strong influence on our energy body. Therefore, we need to understand how the two bodies work together in order to offer us the experience of living a lifetime on this planet Earth. So, honestly, I'd wish I had more to say about it, because a lot of what I'm inspired by is a sort of agreement. So, but I'm glad that, well, I mean, you must like it, I guess. So don't worry, I have plenty more digressions to make. So power to the people, fuel for the energy body. Picture with us, if you will, the creature that you are. You receive this information along your spine in the physical lines of a system of energy, reception and usage. It is fed infinitely in an unending supply by the love and light of the one creator. That light is literally sent down into the heart of the earth, your mother, who then pours it from the center of the earth, or you might even say the womb of the earth, up through the earth into the soles of your feet, into your body system, so that it is constantly streaming into your body system at the red ray level and rises up, and as it, pardon me, and rising as it will up and out through the top of your head to the gateway to intelligent infinity. Quo in December 18, 2005. When we think about how our bodies get the energy to live a life, we immediately think of food and drink. We assume that we need solid and liquid nutrients in order to be healthy. This assumption is correct, except in those rare and perhaps mythical cases where a yogi claims literally to live in light. When we are unable to locate a source of water or other liquid, we die within 3 weeks. If we cannot find food, we would die within 3 months. I would say that, you know, there's some pretty helpful information about how our relationship with Earth as well, Mother Earth, helps us to live in a sense, or at least get our chakra, our energy for our energy body. I suppose I'm sure they'll go into more detail. I mean, I have read this, but, you know, it depends on how fresh in my head it is. Even if a person finds food enough to live, without certain substances, the body will suffer ill health. For example, the bodies of those who are not able to include in their diet a minimal amount of protein from beans, dairy products, and meats are unable to process food properly or perform various cellular functions which are essential to life. This is the kind of nutritional information we are taught from childhood. To this day, I arrange the meals I serve by food groups: protein, leafy vegetables, fruit, and carbohydrates top of the list. As far as this kind of thinking goes, it is good, but it is limited to the concept of the body as something purely physical. And perhaps that's where we can go astray at times. So the Confederation sees the body in a more extended and detailed way. The Ra group calls the person a mind-body-spirit complex. Notice that in their phrase, the body is the second part of the complex to be listed, not the first. The first or dominant part of the complex is the mind. The Confederation says that the body is the creature of the mind. What we feel physically is heavily influenced by our thoughts and emotions. Involved in the word mind are emotions and feelings, intuitions, gut reactions, and biases, which inform our thoughts and delimit our ways of processing thought. In extending mind, including our feelings and biases, if this extended mind, including our feelings and biases, is out of power, the physical body will not experience health, no matter how good the diet may be. So there we go. Part of the diet, in a sense, is an energetic diet. And I've heard that those who are not on Earth, that they don't, there are certain conditions for having a certain connection with Mother Earth to get her energy, I suppose. Other than that, like, pretty solid. I mean, I suppose reviews are meant to be fair and they're meant to be good for like criticisms and stuff, but I feel pretty humble when I read this book in comparison to, I mean, I don't want to put them on a pedestal, but at the same time, it's just like a lot of this is pretty solid, you know? Hopefully you feel the same way. Although, wait, it's not to me how you feel, is it? Never mind that. What is this subtle energy and power source? We see evidence of that power every day when the sun shines in our part of the world. The Confederation describes the subtle energy as the love and light of the one infinite creator. The outward and visible symbol of the creator's love light is the light of our sun. This same love light's inward and invisible nature pours onto our energy body in infinite supply. Just as the creator's outward love light, the sun, brings life to the plant world by offering it light for photosynthesis and the food for its interactions with plants develops. The creator's inward love light brings energy and vitality to our energy bodies. The model offered by the Quo group in the above quote shows the love and light of the creator stemming from the infinite mystery of the unmanifested creator. This love light forms the creation suns. Each sun then creates unique additional details to this love light energy, which makes the energy well suited to the planets of that particular sun. The limitless love light, which is the inner nature of our sun's outward sunlight, pours from the sun into the body of its planets. It is collected into the hearts or central cores of the planets. Each planet is an entity, says the Confederation. It is accurate to call our planet Mother Earth. She is alive and aware. She loves the points or focuses of consciousness which live upon her. We humans are some of those points of consciousness. Mother Earth loves us without reservation, the best of mothers. She feeds us well. She radiates a never-ending supply of limitless love light, which feeds our energy bodies of each of her children. So, given that she's been so lovely to us for so long, I mean, I guess we're going to help her out after this awakening, yeah? Because she's had a hard time recently. That's not a sort of guilt-induced, that's nothing to be shamed about or guilty about. That's simply what we will do in love, yeah? Yeah, I mean, that's something I disagree with green activists actually about. This idea that we need to be ashamed of what we've done to all the pollution and stuff. Like, I absolutely understand that we've not exactly helped the ecosystem and all that, but like, I don't think there's ever a reason. Well, if you're service to others, I don't think there's ever a reason to feel ashamed or guilty. Unless it's some sort of catalyst, I suppose, but like, I mean, they exist for a reason, I guess. But anyway. While we are going about our daily lives, sleeping, eating, working, and enjoying leisure hours, our energy bodies are constantly receiving a limitless source of vital energy. If there are no stoppages of the flow of that energy as it flows through our chakras or energy centers, we experience a feeling of well-being and a good, positive state of mind. We all want to have that well-being and good state of mind. What many psychologists, as well as spiritually based sources like the Confederation say, is that we can effectively block our own sense of well-being. Indeed, we can make ourselves miserable. And often we are not aware that it is our own attitudes and thoughts that are destroying our peace of mind and leaching away our vital energy. This infinite love light enters the physical body at the feet, as if flowing into the body from the earth itself. It enters the energy body at the first chakra or energy center, the red ray center, which is located at the base of the spine. It exits the body at the seventh chakra or energy center, the violet ray center, which is located at the top of the head. Now, there are other systems in which to measure the energy bodies, which have more than 7. But I feel like when you're starting, it's probably most helpful to go with the 7 system. I mean, technically, you could say the inner sanctum of the heart is a separate chakra, which makes 8, and then there's one above the top of the head, literally above the top of your body, that makes 9. So there's a 9 system, then you can go all out to a 12 system, which has 3 other ones. but I think 7 works pretty well to start. In terms of learning how it works. So the chakra system can be seen as prismatic in nature, possessing the various colors within white light. As the love light moves up the energy pipeline, each color is used by ascending chakras. The order of coloration is like the rainbows. Remember the acronym for the colors of the rainbow, Roy G. Biff. Mr. Biv helps us to remember the colors in order: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. These rainbow-hued energy centers march along the physical spine, a kind of companion energy spine. The red ray chakra is found at the base of the spine at the groin level. The orange ray chakra is found at the level of the mid-abdomen. The yellow ray chakra is located at the solar plexus level. The green ray chakra is found at the level of the heart. The blue ray chakra is located at the level of the throat. The indigo ray chakra is found at the forehead level. And the violet ray chakra is located at the top of the head. This is the basic coloration and structure of our energy bodies. The red energy center is the first of the 7 chakras or rays. The first center which receives the incoming supply of infinite love light. When we are overly concerned about issues of survival and sexuality, it can block the incoming love light at the red ray energy center. The next chakra is located at the level of the abdomen. It is the orange ray energy center. When we are worried about our relationships, either our internal relationships with others or relationship with others in the outer world, we can block the energy there. It's obviously, there's going to be a lot more detail in later sections, which is going to be in separate episodes. But yeah, I'm going to carry on. Rising up the energy body, the next chakra is a yellow ray energy center, located at the solar plexus between the waist and the chest. When we are having trouble with malmarriages, our birth families, our work environments, or other groups and legal entities, we can block up the energy there. When people are blocked in 1, 2, or 3 of the first basic centers, this means that love light is not sufficiently supplied to the 4th and next chakra up in the pipeline, which is the heart or the green ray energy center. Without a sufficient supply of energy to the heart chakra, the heart cannot open or stay open. The clarity of mind which comes from having the heart center open cannot be found. Without the open heart's clarity, it is very hard to make loving and compassionate choices in ethical situations. And if we're committed, this is not from the book, and if we're committed to service to others, but it's harder to make compassionate choices because our heart's not opened, that's an issue. So that's why opening our heart is a priority, and that's why clearing the blockages is very important, and clearing out the imbalances. And that's why we need to look within, at our inner darkness, at our imbalances and so forth, at the wounds within, and we've got to do the inner work, the shadow work, to clear it out. And that shadow work doesn't mean like clubbing puppies to death or something. It means, well, exploring your dark side, and like what Jordan Peterson said, like considering the potential that you have for doing bad things, so to speak. That's not the only part of it, but it's much more than that. There's also just like, how are you hurt, right? What traumas have you been through? Even if they seem like minor traumas, right? Were you bullied when you were a kid? Like what things do you remember and groan about? Those things. What things do you not admit to yourself because it's too painful to admit it to yourself? you know, things like that. And unfortunately, a lot of people, they don't understand yet when the idea of inner shadow work, you know, sometimes they see it as choosing negativity or darkness, and thus the wrong alignment. And it's unfortunate that they see it that way. But they're on their own journey and they'll get there eventually. That's not to judge them. That's not something to judge them about. So keeping these first three energy centers unblocked is essential for the player of the game of life. Without food into the heart center, we are stuck with the senses on the intellects of our physical bodies, which are like those of the great ape. Our physical bodies are those of the great ape family, as are our physical minds. The physical mind is a tool designated to make choices and is a good tool, but the parameters of intellectual choice tend to be limited to earthly logical options. This works well for ethically neutral choices we make, like which food to buy at the grocery or what room to tidy first on a clean day. You know, I said it fine the first time. I don't know why I repeated it. When the intellectual mind faces ethical choices, however, it tends to fail to be able to fully to value the issue at hand. And I'm getting a sense I need to stop soon because I'm slipping more. You probably could tell. So like a couple or so more paragraphs, I guess. These biases and attitudes are sufficient to power a player through life on the flat game board. Now, this is game board that the ego dwells on. So like things that in material terms benefit you, like a better car, better job, more pay, these things, you know, and they can be superficial. And maybe I was generalizing in a way that makes it sound even more superficial, because some of it is like, you've got kids and you need to provide for them. I mean, yeah, fair enough. It is part of life, the flat game board. It's just not the whole picture, is it? These are entirely insufficient to power a player through the life on the game board. That is you know, being service to others. To feed this consciousness, that is the environment of your spirit or soul, which rests on within the energy body and distinguishes it from the physicality of the purely animal world, you need the Creator's love light. And when you block that love light through your tension, worry, and over-concern about the details of life, you are, as Lady Dalton puts it, standing knee-deep in the water and dying of thirst. You know, I'm sure we can all relate to that. And I've definitely been there. You know, not being that attached like that, and worrying, you know, it can be a regular struggle for people who are committed to serving others. It takes time and discipline. It takes time, you know. And maybe we get sudden breakthroughs, and maybe it's steady. We get a bit of both. We're all going to get there, you know. It's just, I don't think it's not supposed to be easy, is it? Oh, we come here for a challenge. I mean, any game is meant to be challenging. Otherwise, what's the point? So, you know, I think that was pretty helpful for me, and hopefully for you as well. Like, it's good to refresh my memory on this. I really like reading the way Carla Rueckhart writes. I know I'm taking different sections of this book at different points. I'm not reading it in order, but I feel like it's okay if I'm reading which bits I feel like reading when I feel like reading them. I feel like that is what determines the right order. So, okay, so the next section is using minds and consciousness together. And it's only a few pages until it starts talking about the red ray energy center. So, I mean, technically I could just like keep reading until like a few more pages, 5 more pages, but if my concentration's flagging, it just wouldn't be as good if I did that. It's better to just have like either a small episode at the beginning, or to just start, I don't know, start to read the rest of it and then start talking about the red ray energy center in the same episode. Anyway, I know the episodes I've been doing are a bit less common at the moment, including the interviews, but I am working just as, I'm paying just as much attention on being productive. It's just kind of, I suppose this is what it's like to be a YouTuber, I guess, like, or whatever, focusing on videos which you do more quality content, or at least polished, like it takes, you can't just churn it out. Getting it right, there's different ways to do it. But I'm basically in the preparation stage, which is probably the most important stage. Once I've got it clear in my head and not what we're talking about, I could do that well. I'm doing a particular method, so, and I'm trying to make it good. I'm not just trying to make some YouTube video that's like 20 minutes, an equivalent of 20 minutes on this podcast. No. I'm trying to make something that is worth several hours of content within 20 minutes. Something like that is what I'm going for. So that's why I'm taking a while and doing considerable. That's why it looked like I just stopped out of nowhere, because honestly, I was using pen and paper and partly spoken word. I'm using the that method I mentioned anyway. The Feynman method, Richard Feynman came up with it. It's quite effective. It seems to work to me. Anyway, so I enjoyed that. Hope you did too. Keep holding that light, and keep doing that inner work. You've got this. We've already won. We just gotta get through to the end of it, So, and we're fortunate to know about this and be where there's a lot of people who don't know about this at all, right? We can help them just by keeping at it. So you're doing great, probably way better than you realize you're doing. And what I have been able to get from my spirit guides, although it's not like I get clear-cut messages that are absolute, like, this is what I'm being told. Like, but what I am, whether from somewhere at least, like I've been getting this idea, this message or something of like, you're doing way better than you think you are. And honestly, I don't think it's just me. I think that if you're listening to this, you're probably doing great too. Like, not that you couldn't do a lot better. I'm sure there's a lot of inner work to do, and yeah. Oh, I have faith in you. So keep up the inner work and stuff. Okay. Bye for now.